7 players leaving. We're going to be talking about Balogun and a bidding war that's about to pursue that with multiple clubs about to pursue for the United States international striker Pepe to Saudi Arabia. We've got all of the departures we're going to be speaking about and potentially some more incomings within this transfer window, maybe one or two. We'll get right into it here, people, with this Arsenal talking transfer show in particular. Well, go on, everyone. I hope you're doing well and welcome back to Tereak Talks. Guys, I'm sorry for that messed up intro. Sorry for being late. The big reason why I was late is because I'm suffering with allergies. I've had to get the tissues here. Yes, for allergies. Suffering with it today. I don't know why. You just have some days where it might be hay fever. I think it's dust, to be honest. But yeah, I cleaned my room out today and proper wiped everything down, gave it a nice refresh that you can't see. But I hope you're all keeping good and well. Thank you for joining me. That's enough about my personal life. Well, are you here for that? Let me know in the comments. You know how I do. I'll waffle. And another reason why I was late, I was looking at my face, my beard. It's way too long. I need to get a haircut, you see. But I don't have any time up until, the time where I do have time, my barber's fully booked, and the time where he's available, I'm not available. So yeah, up until next week. So hopefully going to have a fresh trim for next week Wednesday. But for now, for the next week, yeah, you're going to be looking at a homeless looking man. But I hope you're all keeping good and well, people. I thank you for joining me here. Big up to everyone who's in here in the chat right now. Thank you for joining. Big up Casey in the building saying, guess who's back? Say 7 players leaving, may as well be 17. Hey, that's too much, of course. King in the building here too. Big up T and chat. Looking forward to this. Big up to yourself, King. Hope you're keeping good and well. Paxton in the building, helping us with some news that we're going to be discussing about for sure. Guys, I'm sweating as well. It's really hot in this room. I'm wearing a t-shirt. I was thinking about wearing a jumper. My word, I'd literally be dripping in sweat right now if I decided to wear a jumper. But yeah, that's the UK weather. You never know what to predict here. Big up everyone in the building as well. And if you're watching afterwards, make sure you do subscribe if you're new and hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Let's get straight into it then, because we're not going to spend too much time dilly-dallying. I've already done that already. And we're going to talk about the main topic, the one that we've got first in the title. And it's a potential race for Folarin Balogun. And this news came out within the last hour or so. A number of clubs have registered an interest in Folarin Balogun this summer, with Chelsea, West Ham and Tottenham among the teams to have inquired. It's understood that Arsenal would inflate Balogun's asking price to sell to a direct Premier League rival. And what we do know at this current stage is that Balogun and Arsenal, and the triangle between Arsenal, Monaco, and Balogun are currently in talks, and talks are progressing well. That's what we heard earlier on today regarding this news for Balogun, and that's where it's looking good from this part, because Arsenal have registered. They have valued Folarin Balogun at 50 million euros. Up until this point, which has put off a lot of suitors, the likes of Inter Milan, who weren't willing to pay that price. And then Arsenal, what came out is that Arsenal asked for a higher price from Chelsea, of course, a Premier League rival, a London rival, in that case. So Arsenal did the right thing, in my opinion, to ask for a higher fee from the likes of Chelsea and even Tottenham. You'd ask for even higher from Tottenham if he was to sell to those guys there. But yeah, it's getting interesting. It's heating up with Folarin Balogun. I'd like to hear your thoughts as well on it in the chat, because at the start of the summer, when things before pre-season and probably from that Nuremberg game, I was really looking forward to see Flo, and I actually wanted him to stay. Personally, I actually want him to stay and try and fight for a place, but he's made it clear that his intentions are, whether it's at the Emirates or elsewhere, that he wants to play regular first team football, and he wants to be given a serious and proper chance of getting those minutes. And the situation at Arsenal is just about bad timing for me because we've got Gabriel Jesus, Eddie Nketiah, who Arteta really trusts. And I'll be honest, I've been very impressed with since the start of the season, because before the season, a ball was kicked, I would have said if we have to sell a striker, it'd have been Eddie Nketiah would have been the one to leave for me. But what I've seen from him at the start of the season, mixed with Arteta's comments about him, it's really encouraged me. And I do think Eddie Nketiah is improving the more that we see him. I think he's even taken leaps and bounds in his game from last season when he came in for Gabriel Jesus in that period. And the Crystal Palace game, that was the best game I've seen for Eddie Nketiah play for Arsenal in terms of his overall impact on the game. Even bigger than the Manchester United one, where he scored 2 goals, and of course in a massive fixture there. I was much more impressed with his overall play, linking up, how he was causing the Palace defenders a lot of problems, spinning. He looked really sharp, and from the very first minute, I think he's looked very sharp in this season, and he's worked really hard, what Mikel Arteta said. So he's got the right attitude, and for someone who wants to compete with Gabriel Jesus and has that mentality and the willingness to take on that challenge. Whereas I can't really talk about Folarin Balogun's mentality too much because there's a lot of thoughts and opinions. People just automatically think, yep, he must have a bad attitude if Arteta doesn't want to play him, and they're kind of putting them preconceptions that they have in their head and trying to put 2 and 2 together with the interviews where he's come out and spoke about his desire to play first team football. And he's never shut down the possibility of moving away. We've seen him flirt with Inter Milan when they were interested in him. He's saying happy birthday to Marcus Thuram and all those little things that what players do nowadays. It's a shame. It's a shame, but with Arsenal, there is a positive in this, in that we could demand a potentially, a record fee for Folarin Balogun, and with multiple clubs interested, that just makes our position stronger. We've seen it with other players that we've been interested with, who we brought in this summer with Declan Rice. As soon as Manchester City got involved, West Ham were licking their lips, and they knew that they could get even more than they expected for their player. And then when we're also looking at Mudryk, even Chelsea were able to, Shakhtar Donetsk were able to command the fee that they wanted. And sorry, my camera's not in focus. I don't know why it's not focusing, but there we go. But yeah, so it really helped with Mykhailo Mudryk as well. We've seen it plenty of occasions where we've been the victims of other clubs being interested in our players. But with the amount of interest with Folarin Balogun, it should drive the price up, and we could even get more than we expected. 50 million euros is what we've been asking for, and up until now, we haven't been able to get that for him. But we'll have to wait and see. We may get more. I want to hear your thoughts on the situation as well, guys. I'm going to go into the comments before I move on into the next topic as well. What have we got in here just regarding Balogun? And then, yeah, I'll jump into other comments. Yeah, I can see you guys talking about that chip messed tee up. It really has. It really has. Maybe that's the reason why I'm feeling like this now. It brought my immune system down. Guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I did the 1 chip challenge the other day on the channel. Yeah, you can have a look at that if you want to watch someone in pain, and if you find that funny. Exactly, indeed. Big up to yourself, Mr. 200 in the building. Luke in here, big up to yourself. Luke says, depending on if we're bringing anyone else in, it suits us to delay accepting any offer for Balogun right now. See if Fulham, etc., do come in for him. Yeah, exactly that. And Arsenal won't be. I hear that in terms of the value and the maximum value and the maximum amount of money that you can get for Balogun. It will be best to wait, and as clubs get more desperate as time goes on, and as we get closer towards the end of the transfer window, which is now, what is it, like 10 days away? 9 days, actually, yeah, 9 days away now until the transfer deadline day. And we've seen with sales at this point, Fulham losing Mitrovic to Saudi Arabia, Al Hilal in particular, their need for a striker will only grow. Other clubs like Chelsea are looking for a striker. The striker market is very scarce at the moment. So there's a lot of demand for players like Balogun, who had a very impressive season at Roms at a young age. USA's international, number 9. He knows his value. That's why he wants to leave. And if Arsenal want to get top dollar for him, they can wait and they can do that. But I feel that Arsenal won't wait because they will shave off. They'll potentially lose out on 5 million or 5 to 10 million. 10 million's a lot, but 5 to 8 million, let's say about that, for the sale, so that they can get in someone as well. Early thing on when we're talking about the potential incomings. I do think Arsenal will bring in at least one player, at least one, maximum 2. So 1 or 2 players before the window shuts. I think it's a necessity as well for Arsenal to bring at least one player in before the window shuts. And yes, I would, of course, as a fan, I'd want more than one. I'd want 2 at the very least. But we have to remember there is a January window as well, and the situations may change and players may become available. We kind of forget that as fans, because ideally we'd want everything done within the summer, so your squad and you're set, you're ready to go. You don't really see Manchester City make too many January signings, or if they do make a January signing, it's not someone that's going to come in and you need desperately to play for the first team. It's someone that you can buy who's at a young age, like they did with that Maxime Perrone, who's now left on loan, and you can just be there waiting for opportunities. Whereas with the situation at Arsenal, I think because we are still trying to make a lot of sales and our squad isn't as set as we'd like it to be, as I would have hoped it would have been at this stage going into the summer. So we are still going to make a lot more sales, I believe. 7 players potentially leaving. We'll get into the others as well. That's not enough to win the league title. Oh, that's in regards to Casey there. Bit concerned that we're reportedly willing to sell Gabriel Sami Mokbel, latest to report that, Mail Online. With the Gabriel Magalhaes thing, yeah, I'm not sure that that's true. Of course, things can change very quickly. I just think there's a lot of, once again, 2 plus 2 added on equals 5 with that situation. I think he was not played because of tactical reasons. And I'll dive into that a little bit later when we get towards the end there. I'm going to save that and talk why I think that with Gabriel. How much would you sell Balogun for, guys? It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. If you're watching afterwards, let me know in the comments. If you're watching live, let me know whilst we're watching. Casey says Balogun, 20 million up front and a 33% sell on and 20k. I don't think Arsenal will be asking for 20 million. They want considerably more than that. Otherwise, they would have sold him to Inter Milan earlier on, who were willing to pay around that figure as well. Pax, I'll talk about that a bit later as well. Let me save that here too. BX in the building says 65 million for Balogun. We are entering towards the end of the transfer window now, when these players, when clubs are trying to sign players, it can rise to that figure and the value can increase, and as desperation goes and other clubs may not be willing to sell. But with Arsenal's case, I feel like we are willing to sell, and he's lower in the pecking order. So I think we don't think we can really demand that much. But who knows? BX, if you're right and I'm wrong, I will take that. I will take that for sure. Yeah, we'll get into that. I'll save that as well into here. We've got plenty of comments, people. We'll definitely get into them a bit later. Let me just run through the other topics on hand here as well. So the next topic that I want to speak about is Nicola Pepe. So with Nicola Pepe, he's one of the other 7 that could potentially depart this summer. So with Nicola Pepe, we had some interesting news today regarding Pepe, and he's been linked to Saudi Arabia, he's been linked to Besiktas, but he's not been able to make a breakthrough there due to his personal terms being out of the figures, out of the too much for what he's demanding from these clubs that are willing to buy him. But now an unnamed Saudi club is negotiating with Arsenal for Nicola Pepe and are offering a transfer fee. So that's big news, and that's been released by Fabrice Hawkins, who is a tier 1 journalist, someone who is respectable and does get it right a lot of the time with the information that he puts out there. Of course, nobody gets it at 100%, and I don't think it's because of the information that they receive is wrong. It just that things change very, very quickly. But that is potentially good news for Arsenal regarding Nicola Pepe, because with the talks with Besiktas, where that looked like he was most likely going to end up, they were willing to wait until the end and let Pepe and Arsenal negotiate a termination of his contract. And that wouldn't have helped Arsenal at all. Yes, we have done it previously, but we don't. That's not what we're looking to do anymore. That was more because of desperation, the situation that we was in, and the players that we had under our contract that weren't desirable at all, and won way too much wages for any club to want to pay a transfer fee as well and get the player. And with Pepe, it's not too dissimilar for him, because I believe the wages that he's on are going to be way more than what he's actually worth at the moment. And for the clubs that are interested, they're way more than they're willing to pay for a player, because we brought in Pepe with the old regime where Raul Sanllehi was in there. And it just goes to show how much of a mess Arsenal were in. Yes, we've made leaps and bounds to get to this point where Arsenal have a very good squad of players, young players who we've got on good wages and long-term contracts, and we continue to do that as we're negotiating with Martin Ødegaard as well, now our skipper. Arsenal in a very good situation with their playing squad. But when you look at situations like Nicola Pepe and other players that we'll get into later, we still got around the club, which shows how much of a mess we put ourselves previously. So I've always got to give Edu, Mikel Arteta, Richard Garlick, Vinay, all these people who work at the club, are part of recruitments and player turnover and all those things there. Massive credit. And what they've done in such really a short space of time. Yes, so the fans might be looking at it and saying it's not really short. It's been 3-4 years. But with the situation that we've been in and the contract length that a lot of these undesirable players who were Arsenal for the wrong reasons and got us into this messy predicament we're on, they were willing to stay, and it was hard to shift them on. But Arsenal took the risks of terminating contracts, paying players to leave, in Edu's words himself, in making investments, because it's important to get these players out to build the right culture at the club and not have unhappy players in and around the dressing room, because it really does affect the morale. Just think about if you've got unhappy players at work and your everyday day-to-day life, whatever you're doing, whatever job you may have, or even if not necessarily a job, it could be in your house. If you've got unhappy people in and around the house, or any discourse or anything like that, it can affect your mood, and it can affect everything in and around there, and it's not a happy environment. Whereas Arsenal, we've kind of got that now. We still got a few players we need to move on who are on first team wages and who are first team players, and Pepe is one of them. But this is good news. But now what I want to see, if this is true, Nicola Pepe, please do not take the mick when you're asking for these wages or the personal terms, whatever you demand. Please do not take the mick and make that move over to Saudi if you want. Of course, it's up to the player. The player holds the cards. Mikel Arteta said that himself on many other occasions when we talked about Mykhailo Mudryk. If a player wants to come, if a player has a strong desire to go to a club, they ultimately make the final decision, not even the clubs. Hence, Declan Rice was able to sign Declan Rice, Timber, Kai Havertz, and the likes of there. So, yeah, big news. And I hope that we do get something for Nicola Pepe. Anything now, we're not going to get anywhere near those 70 million, that 79, whatever, 72 million was it? Yeah, I can't even remember. I don't even want to remember for Nicola Pepe. But yeah, just one more thing before I move on and into you guys' thoughts in the chat. I've been hearing a lot of fans saying, let's give Pepe one more year Let's give him one more year. Let's see what he can do as a backup behind Saka. You know, people say he's better than Anthony. I don't think, you know what? I don't think he's not too far. I don't think he's better than Anthony. And the only reason being is because of the defensive work. I think going forward, which most people look for in attackers and what catches the eye a lot of the time, is the goals that he can score, the assists that he can make. He's better than that, than Anthony for me. But the problem, why you know Nicola Pepe hasn't been able to succeed at Arsenal, and why he's not really been courted by a lot of other top clubs, is what attackers do, what he does defensively, and what he lacks defensively in his concentration with inconsistencies. I hear people make a lot about that, but for me, you need to for attackers nowadays at these top clubs, they need to be able to do their due diligence defensively. Hence why why Erik ten Hag likes Anthony. People may scratch their head and wonder, Man United fans and rivals included, but he does what Erik ten Hag wants from a defensive standpoint. And I know it sounds crazy, but everyone has a role. You know, your defense, you're the first line of attack, and then you and no, you start your attacks with your defense, and then you start your defending, and the first line of a defending is your attack. And those things are important. And you know, when we talk about Kai Havertz and the likes of those, that's why when things don't quite make sense, why coaches and managers go for them, what they can give you as their base level, their floor. When Pepe's on it, he's on fire, and he can, and you know, you get the best out of him going forward. He's very good player, and we saw that on occasions, in moments, in big games, even in the FA Cup. When we won in that 2020 year in lockdown. But the inconsistency he gives you going forward, you can't make up for it for the defensive duties. And that's why Arsenal have been a very good team overall. So yeah, that's the issue there with Pepe. Let me hear what you're saying in the chat, guys, about this. Are you happy about Nicola Pepe, his potential sale? I don't think we've got too much on that here, but we've got plenty of other things that we can discuss about as well. I'm going to wrap up these topics as we go into it, and then I'll go into the comments and what you guys are saying towards the end. So if you've got any questions, hold your thoughts on that just for now. I'm just going to quickly run through the rest of the topics. And the next player that I want to speak about that could potentially be leaving is Sambi Lokonga. So what came out yesterday in regards to Sambi Lokonga, that Brighton are now pursuing him after their talks with Lille central midfielder Beleba has stalled and is on the verge of breaking down. Now, that is very interesting because Sambi Lokonga has been linked with Burnley for the majority of this transfer window. It looked like he was going to potentially reunite with the previous manager at Anderlecht with Vincent Kompany back in the Premier League. And it looked like Arsenal could have made some money. But what we learned after that was, as the window went on, that Burnley were only looking to get him on loan with an option to buy. Of course, that's not ideal. That's not the ideal scenario for Arsenal. With these players that we're trying to move on, we want to try and get a fee. And with a player like Sambi Lokonga, who hasn't been a success, you want to try and make as much money as you can back on a transfer fee. I'm just trying to have a look now. How much should we pay for Sambi Lokonga? I don't want to get the figure. I don't want to get it wrong entirely, but let's have a look on Transfer Markt right here. So his current market value is 15 million euros, and Arsenal bought him for 15 million euros. Well, 17.5 million. That's how much we paid for him. So if Arsenal can get 50 million euros, then we're making a loss of 2.5 in the end. It's going to be difficult, but we know that Brighton have money. They're not struggling from that standpoint at all with the sale that they made from Moises Caicedo, the money that's going to be available for Brighton. Arsenal will know that. And if they do have a strong desire to get him, and it's not just a name that's on the shortlist, then Arsenal could try and recoup as much as that for Sambi Lokonga. I can see Casey in here. Sambi Lokonga for Manchester United, he's saying. Man United, of course, need a midfielder. If you're interested, 20 million for you. But yeah, I think the the Brighton link is kind of put a little bit more respect on Samuel Lokonga, and he's a player that a lot of Arsenal fans have not wanted, and it's just simply not worked out. The issue with Samuel Lokonga is not shown the physical nature, the intensity when he's play, or the physicality to really play in Arsenal's midfield, which is a very strong midfield, not just technically, but physically. What we have now with Declan Rice, Partey, Havertz is a big tall player, and he's got that adds that physicality to his game. And for those who didn't believe it, well, guess what? The stats are proving it for you now. In the two Arsenal games that we've played against Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace, there's nobody on the pitch that has won more duels than Kai Havertz. So that's very interesting because, if you watch the Amazon documentary, how much Mikel Arteta prioritizes win those in duels. You know what I mean, people? So he gets those duels, he wins them. And with Samuel Lokonga, just doesn't suit that style of play. I do think there is a player in there. Technically, he's very confident and assured. And when he made his debut for Arsenal in that 21-22 season, we saw signs. And he was playing in the Arsenal team with Thomas Partey and keeping Xhaka out. Not really keeping him out, but filled in for Xhaka when he picked up that ankle injury against Tottenham. And it was up until the Liverpool game, Liverpool away at Anfield, where we got battered 4-0, where he looked really assured and looked like a player that we could be seeing for the future in the Arsenal midfield. But it just hasn't worked out. Not all signings do. Not name me a manager that gets 100% on signings or even 90%. Top managers in and around the world make bad decisions at times, and it's not even a bad decision. You could see why Arsenal made it, just hasn't quite worked out with the individual. But if he makes a move to Brighton under a manager like Roberto De Zerbi on the ball, he could be just as good as Caicedo on the ball, but with Caicedo off his best, biggest asset to him, and what he definitely won't replace is that physicality, is that reading of the game, what he brings to them from a defensive standpoint, energetic, intensity. He just doesn't have that in his game at all. But yeah, it'd be a great move for Samuel Lokonga, and I think Roberto De Zerbi would be a top manager for him. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat about Samuel Lokonga. Mr. 200 says here, I think he will fit nicely in at Brighton. De Zerbi will get him playing well. On the ball, he has it all. He just keeps getting caught out of position when off the ball. 100% agree. 100%. So I'm glad that you agree with me when we talk about his on-the-ball ability. But it's just, you added something that I didn't even mention there. And when he gets caught out of position, and that's something we saw in his final game for Arsenal against Manchester City last year in the FA Cup, where he just fell asleep when Nathan Ake scored it. And it was the only goal and the winning goal of that game. And things could have worked out differently if Samuel Lokonga was just a few yards deeper and alert for half a second earlier. And Arsenal could have potentially won that game. So we were very good and we was impressive there. And that's away at the Etihad with a lot of changes. But he just, in those moments, fine margins make the difference at the top level. So yeah, it's a shame for him. It's not worked out at Arsenal, but at Brighton, it'd be a great move for him. And an Arsenal perspective, let's just try and get as much money as possible. So the other few topics that I just want to speak about, guys, big up to everyone that is here locked in now. Really do appreciate you all. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't done so already. We've spoken about Balogun, spoken about Pepe, spoken about Samuel Lokonga, and another player that I want to speak about, and it's not good news from a transfer perspective, a sale, is Nuno Tavares. So we've seen reports today linking that Nuno Tavares' move to Nottingham Forest is in doubt. Fabrizio Romano reported yesterday that talks have stalled, and it's because Nuno Tavares is considering other options. We've seen links with Nuno Tavares to Aston Villa, who are looking for a left back. Now that Luca Dean is going to be sold, and Alex Moreno's coming back from an injury in September. So Aston Villa could be a possible destination. For me, just from a personal standpoint, it would have made more sense for him to go to Nottingham Forest, who do play with wing backs, and he's definitely a wing back, and he's much better in that position than he is as a fullback. It's because the strength that he has in his game is his pace, is his physicality, is that unpredictability he gives you from an attacking sense. He can score goals, he can get assists when he's on fire and on his game. He's a tall player, you know, he's 6 foot. And, you know, when you watch players on TV, you don't really notice how big they are physically. But when I saw Nuno Tavares' debut, in fact, against West Brom in that 6-0 victory, I was there. And his stature surprised me. And he was very quick down on that left-hand side. And he looked like a bright player. But what we've seen in his time at Arsenal, a bit like Sam Lokonga, is his defensive. It's not even the fact that he doesn't have the physical attributes, because he definitely does, but it's the concentration again, out of position, doesn't have that defensive awareness. When he was growing up through the academy at Benfica, he was actually a winger. So you can see the potential going forward. He has that bit of an Adama Traore, Saint Maximin type going forward, where they can be erratic, don't make the right decisions, take shots when they shouldn't, and don't pass when they should. But yeah, we've seen him score against Manchester United for Arsenal in that left back position, but we've also seen a lot of errors and a lot of goals conceded from him as well. And I won't forget that game at Nottingham Forest away in the FA Cup where he got hauled off before half time, and Arteta wasn't happy with his performance, and he had a shocker. He had a nightmare away from home in there, and yeah, it's just not worked out. Again, another signing that we made that's fairly cheap, £7 to £8 million that we spent on Nuno Tavares. Let's see how much we can recoup, and there's potential that we could get and make a profit on Nuno Tavares, which is interesting, given the fact that he has failed at Arsenal, but he impressed very early on in his loan spell at Marseille. He was, he scored a few goals, got a few assists. I remember earlier on into last season, but then he fell out of favour with Igor Tudor as well. So yeah, it's just not quite worked out where he's been at. And if he would have continued his early performances at Marseille up until the end of the season and shown that consistency, we could be talking potentially about 20 to 30 million pounds for Nuno Tavares. But there's once again, there is a player in there, but it's not at the Arsenal level. We can't really be patient with the level that we're trying to get to now with these types of players when we're trying to win leagues and compete in the Champions League and compete across multiple competitions. We just don't have that sort of patience. If you're not good enough, you gotta simply go. And yeah, that's the same with Nuno Tavares right there. Big up to everyone here in the chat. We've got little Yo-Yo in the building here, realist in here. Big up to yourself, guys. I want to see what you're saying on Nuno Tavares before I move on to the final 3 topics. Yeah, 3 topics that I've got before we get into the chat and what you guys are saying here. As a wing back, he's good, but defensively, yeah, exactly that. He's defensively not good enough, and with how Arsenal play and the jeopardy that we leave with our defenders because of how the risks that we take, shall I say, you need to be concentrated. There's a lot of Arsenal fans that don't think Zinchenko's good enough defensively, but what he offers you going forward is at a ridiculous level. Is at a level that you don't really see many fullbacks play at, and how he can control a game from there. And defensively, he's better than Nuno Tavares. Let's just make that clear, if it wasn't already. So that's what I'm saying. But defensively, he's worse, and he's a liability. We saw it. Crystal Palace away, 3-0 defeat. No, that's what I'm saying. The levels are there, and that's the Premier League for you. We got battered away at Crystal Palace 2 years ago, and the past 2 years we've gone there and won and kept clean sheets because of how we've been able to be concentrated, even with 10 men like we did on Monday. So that's true. That brother is a sprinter, nothing else. Yeah, his physical attributes are the best. He can actually shoot with his right foot as well. He's not too bad at shooting his right foot. I think Arsenal, we saw it in pre-season against Rangers, and he scored with his right foot. He can curl it. We've seen in other games where he's not scored with his right foot for Arsenal, but he's not been afraid to take a shot with his weaker foot. So you can see that he was a winger back in the day, essentially. Quite strong on both feet, very fast, likes to dribble, likes to take his man on in front of him. But when it's to turn around and face going the other way, yeah, it's not his biggest part. So yeah, maybe if he was a winger, if he got converted for a winger for a lower level, a lower level than Arsenal, could potentially still be in the Premier League. He could do that. He could have a good career. Little Yo-Yo, I think he would be a top class winger if he just played up high. Yeah, because defensively, it's not the same. You're not tasked with the same responsibility as the winger defensively as you are as a fullback. And someone obviously saw potential in him to be a fullback and work from deep. The only issue is when you're a winger, you have your back to play a lot of the time, and you got to still work with your back to goal as well, like we see with Saka, and it's not always facing forward. So when he can get going like a train, like a steam train, that's when he does cause problems. Luke says, if we get more than 5 million for Tavares, then I'm happy because I don't think there's much value in him. Well, maybe. Well, you might be right as well in the end, because Arsenal were looking apparently around 15 million euros or 50 million pounds, sorry, with Nottingham Forest, and that stalled and they weren't willing to pay that. But if he does have other options, like what's being reported, I don't know, maybe we could get more than what we initially paid for with Tavares, which would be interesting. Because I probably share the same opinion with you. If I was a club buying out there, I wouldn't. Would I be? What I want, Tavares? No, I think they'd be better in the market if you can look outside of Europe and or even into Europe, or use your scouting network similar to Brighton. Would Brighton be interested in Tavares? I don't think so. Hang on, having said that, Estupinan, he's a better 1v1 defender. But, he carries that same sort of role. I'm kind of making my mind up as I'm going in this stream right here. Maybe. I'm feeling different. We'll have to wait and see with Tavares. How about having Tavares as a backup winger to Saka? Yeah, I don't think we could take that risk either. With that, I think with Arteta, he has to be 100% confident who he brings in. Even if they're not currently a right winger, you just won't share that confidence with Tavares there. But yeah, I hear that, because we did say but better as a winger. Luke says, Lil Yo-Yo, for real, it's worth a try. He's just an athlete, says King. Casey says, is this about Tereak? I had potential on a football pitch. Big up Casey in the building, man. I remember when he first came to Arsenal, a Chelsea fan on my banter chat said, I like your new left back. Hey, if Chelsea want him, if he's not bantering, who knows? Chelsea could be interested. He's young enough, and he speaks Portuguese, so Chelsea might want him there. T wants my attention, so I'll catch in the morning. Big up to yourself, Mr. 200 in the building. Yeah, hopefully you have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your night, and give T my love as well. Let's go into the next part of the final three topics that I want to speak about. So we've spoken about the 4 departures: Balogun, Pepe, Tavares, Lokonga. But what are the other 3? When I was typing this out earlier on today, it wasn't announced, but there is an article that's come out now from Sandine from the Telegraph, which does state, let me bring this up on screen for you. Sorry, my eyes are just playing up. It's the allergies again. Here's the state of play on possible Arsenal departures. After a summer spend of around 200 million, the focus is now selling those who are not part of Arteta's plans. And here are the 7 that they've got here: Balogun, Tavares, Pepe, Lokonga, who we mentioned. But the other 3 are Tierney, Cedric, and Rob Holding. So that final one in particular is very interesting, because would I sell Rob Holding? Absolutely, if there's interest in him, because we just know he's not at the level where Arsenal are at now, and he can't play. He doesn't suit stylistically into how we are. I think he suits. I think he could still have a Premier League career, just in a different team, lower down the league, lower level, with a different system. I don't think Rob Holding would be terrible for a Wolves, for example, or a West Ham, or even a Forest, someone that plays with a low block and is not afraid to go in a low block at times. I think Rob Holding offers you something there. But when you're trying to play a high line, when you're trying to play out of the back and focus on build-up play against pressing teams that are willing to press, or you're trying to progress as quickly as possible, or play that what we've done in the last few games with Saliba as that central defender. I'm sorry, Rob Holding couldn't do that, and you wouldn't trust him, especially when in those situations where Jordan I had on Monday, where Saliba made the mistake, but he was able to recover with his athleticism, with his defensive ability, making those last-ditch tackles. You don't want Rob Holding in those situations. So Arsenal, if we could get, again, 10 million plus for Rob Holding, I think you've done have had a cracking deal. You've made a profit on how much you brought him for, which was what, 2 million that we got him from Bolton at the time. You make an £8 million profit. You've had your service out of him. He contributed into FA Cup wins. Remember that 2016 one in particular against Chelsea. He did his job. Was it 2016 or 2017? Can't remember the year, but I watched Rob Holding speak with the afternoon show with Timsy, that podcast. It was interesting. Rob Holding is a player that is a person, let's say, is a personality that is well respected around the group by the coaching staff, the fellow players there. But yeah, it's just not at the level, let's be honest. Unfortunately, I'm sure he probably knows it too, and he sees it as a privilege. And that's probably why Arteta values him. He's a player that sees it as a privilege to play for Arsenal, and a blessing, and someone who wants to be a part of the group, who has a good mentality by just being a nice, friendly guy. But we need more than that. We're trying to compete for league titles now, guys, and multiple competitions. Sorry, we need more than a nice guy and a friendly face and around the club. We can have that, but someone who's actually at the level you can trust to play in big games. So yeah, not Rob Holding looking like he could leave. Cedric doesn't really. Do I really need to go into that as well? Similar scenario with him. Sure, he's a nice guy. For Arteta to keep him around this long, but let's go make that move now. I'll take anything for Cedric. Any transfer fee will be worth it. I do apologize, guys, with the internet connection. It's going to be up and down here today. I do apologize for that. But yeah, final thing as well. Well, the other final player is Kieran Tierney, and that's someone which I am going to be more focused on in how much we can get for him, because with Kieran Tierney, if we can't get anywhere around 30 million or more, I'd probably be more inclined to keep him because of the level that he can play at. And we know when Kieran Tierney is fit and he's firing, we know he's a very good left back in the Premier League. And a lot of Arsenal fans once upon a time said that he was one of the best left backs in the league, better than the likes of Luke Shaw and whatnot. But it's just, once again, stylistically, how we want to play. He doesn't suit that. He doesn't, and he's missed the squad in previous games. I'm not sure if he was in the squad for the Crystal Palace one, but yeah, he definitely wasn't in the squad for the Nottingham Forest, and that kind of it kind of shows you where his future is at, and it's not really at Arsenal. But why I would keep him if we can't get above 30 million, I think he'd provide us a different option, especially with how Arsenal are being trying to be very unpredictable now in how we play and the different styles that we want to operate in for different opponents. I think Tierney could offer you something different, and someone who is much more as an orthodox left back, who goes up and down, is diligent in his 1v1s. Not the greatest. I think he's kind of overrated in how he defends 1v1. I will be quite honest with you. With that, when people say he's considerably better than Zinchenko, I don't think he is considerably better. Is he? Yeah, I think I trust him more in a 1v1 because of his athleticism. When players trying to take him on the outside or come inside of him, I think he's got the athleticism to recover and the energy to go up and down as well. And going forward, we know he's a decent crosser of the ball. He can take it on the outside, whip one in, and he's not afraid to shoot as well and score some good goals in his time at Arsenal. And once upon a time, he was one of the first names in the team sheet when fit. So yeah, that's why I would be inclined to keep him if we can't get the right price. So whatever clubs are offering for him, it does depend on if I would sell or not. And I think Arsenal might be carrying that approach as well. I don't think they're desperate to sell Kieran Tierney, because if they were, I think he'd have been gone by now. I'm sure there has been a lot of interest that might not have been well reported or not be public knowledge to a lot of fans. But out of all the assets that we've just mentioned there, I think he'd probably be the most desirable one and the best one. The only thing that really stops clubs from willing to pay maybe what Arsenal want is his injury record. The ability, he's got it. He's got it for sure. Yeah, speaking of for sure, Casey says Tierney to Man United. I think that could work. I think that definitely could work. Like, he's at the level. He could compete with Luke Shaw. He could definitely do a job there with how Man United want to play. Maybe with how Eric Ten Hag is trying to build this United team. He's, if you're trying to really work on your build up with Onana, Martinez, I think you need someone better than Tierney and Shaw. To be quite honest with you, I don't think Luke Shaw's stylistically suited to that. I don't think Wan-Bissaka is. So I don't think Tierney will give you a massive upgrade on that sense and really take you to where you want to go. But if you want your fullback to do what fullbacks do in a very old-fashioned sense and not do this inverted stuff where Pepe and Arteta and even Jurgen Klopp is asking for his fullbacks now, he could definitely do a job there. Big up to yourself, Hannah, in the building, in here as well. I hope you're keeping good and well. I'll get into your comment as well just shortly. I just want to get through these other topics, but big up to yourself, Hannah. Lil Yo-Yo says Tierney would be sold at a loss at the moment. He hasn't been fit in for time for your team. All depends on if you have an efficient backup. Yeah, do you know what? He was fit throughout the whole of last season. Last season, he wasn't playing, and it wasn't because of fitness. It was just because of how Arsenal have adapted stylistically. He doesn't do what Zinchenko does, and he's not very comfortable at it. We've seen him do it, and it's not as effective. He's not as calm and comfortable on the ball. He doesn't progress the ball like a central midfielder does, and that's because he's not ever done that, and that's not his game and styles and profiles. He suits a Newcastle more, where he was linked to throughout the majority of the summer and before the window even began. But hey, I think there could be a future elsewhere, and he could still be very good. Out of all the other players, him and Balogun, I'd say if they were to leave Arsenal, they could improve and be top players for their team and top players in whatever league they decide to play in as well. Where they could have a lot of Arsenal fans saying, "Oh man, I wish we didn't sell him. I wish we didn't." Not that I would necessarily agree, but yeah, he could get back to that sort of level. Tierney can play for any team in the Prem except for start except for pervert Pep, and Arteta, who Thierry Henry said is basically a mini Pep Guardiola, didn't he, earlier today? Shaw is a left centre back in a back three. Last year, and Tierney can fight out at fullback. Potentially there. Can't see you having three left backs of that sort of level. Just wouldn't quite make sense for the squad balance, Casey. But yeah, you'd have to sell one of Malacia or Shaw, most likely would be Malacia. And I think you'd have two left backs because Tierney's played at left centre back in a back three. He won an FA Cup doing that. So yeah, Little Yo-Yo says, I see. I think Tierney maybe a loan makes more sense than for him. For Arsenal, though, that's not beneficial, man. For Arsenal, we need to try and recuperate a fee, because the longer we leave him to go on, the less his value will decrease, and the less likely we'll get and make even a profit on him. And because I think Tierney's contracts is still got a couple of years left. I think it might be up until 2025, but don't quote me on that. I'm just going to have a look for you right here and confirm it, as of course. So Kieran Tierney, his contract, expires on, well, I was wrong, 2026. We've got Kieran Tierney on a contract for. So what, 3 years left? 2 years, of course, if he goes on loan and really succeeds, maybe you're right. Maybe that could be the case. If Arsenal want to gamble and send him out on loan to a club which will suit his style, We still have 2 years left. We can still get a top fee for him as well. So maybe that's a good. You know what? The more I think about it, the more I feel that it's a very good shout. Hanno says Tierney is a great traditional and modern fullback. Bombs up and down, defends well. He's just not great at inverting because he's not a midfielder. He's a defender. 100% agree with you there, Hanno. 100%. You're spot on with that there. Will William G. Big up yourself, Will. Says, thoughts on Sambi Lokonga being linked to Brighton, Tereak. There seem to be elite at identifying and developing young talent. Big up to yourself, Will. I know you've just joined in. I have spoken about it. If you want to check out my thoughts in depth, just rewind up until about 20 minutes ago in the show. But I'll answer this now for you as well, just very quickly. Is that, now that Brighton are interested, I think it kind of gets people more alert and think, oh, maybe he is a good player. Even that Brighton link may even get other clubs to think, you know what? Should we go for Sambi Lokonga if he's on Brighton's list? And Brighton's recruitment has been ridiculously good over the years. A loan to rebuild his value could be beneficial to Arsenal, says Luke. It's understandable considering his injury record, why clubs are reluctant to match Arsenal's valuation. Exactly that. And let's be honest, Luke, that's the only reason. Yeah, and that's the only reason because whatever we hear about his professionalism, how he conducts himself. Mikel Arteta has never criticized that. And whenever he speaks in an interview, he's a lot more, gives you more confidence that he's willing to fight for his place than even a Balogun. And you think with Kieran Tierney, with what he's achieved, and once was a starting left back for Arsenal, you think he'd have more cause to be upset about not playing. But he talks well and he shows great professionalism. And when you see him on the pitch, he still works hard and he puts in a shift for us. We know he's definitely not happy. Of course, he would be happy in that situation at the age he's at and what in the role he once held at Arsenal. Let's not forget, it wasn't too long ago, guys, people were saying he should be the captain. Do you understand? So, it's not great for Tierney, but I still got a lot of love for him. King says Tierney's got 3 years left. Yeah, exactly. He does. Realist says Newcastle and Villa suits him. Hey, bro, that's what I mean. They're after Nuno Tavares, Realist. Yeah. Apparently, Villa, they're after the wrong left back at Arsenal. They should be after Tierney. Indeed. It's a good point you've raised right there. My connection's dipping in and out again. I need to sort this out. Right. Next stream, I promise you, it won't be like this. Virgin Media, you heard that. Lil Yo-Yo says, rip up Cedric's contract. You won't make much on him. Yeah, I don't think we will. If that's one player I'd be willing to just terminate the contract for, it would be Cedric indeed. No worries, Will. Big up to yourself in here. Hi, Arsenal Vlogs. Big up yourself. Says you're okay. Arsenal ain't signing anyone. I disagree. I think if we can get these sales out as quickly as possible, and we've still got time left in the window, I think the priority now would be getting a defender, given Timber's injury. But I'd also like a forward. But I'll get into that in a bit for sure. And King says, yeah, I'm surprised Une has not gone in for Kieran Tierney, someone he's previously managed as well. So that it is interesting because he just likes to go for players that he's managed previously. Moussa Diaby, people forget that he managed Moussa Diaby at PSG before he went to Bayer Leverkusen. So I wonder why. Let's get into the final. So the final two topics of the show. We've gone through a lot of your comments, people. Really do appreciate you all. Keep them coming in as well. Would definitely love that. I wanted to speak about potential incomings. As Arsenal Vlogs thinks that we won't get anyone in. I think that we could. I mentioned a defender. My thoughts and feelings on a defender. I can't really tell you what position I would want in particular. I think, okay, let me make this loud and clear. Arsenal aren't going to sign anyone who's fixated to one role. I don't think we're going to sign someone who's a right back and can only play right back. I don't think Arsenal are going to sign someone that's a centre back and that's only got the ability to play at centre back. Also, I don't think Arsenal are going to sign a left back who's only got the ability to play at left back. Jurrien Timber, the injury loss with Jurrien Timber is a massive one because he's someone that could comfortably play across all three of those positions. So it's what Arteta is looking at is let's look at the place where we're weakest at in terms of our squad depth and level potentially. For me, I would like to get a centre back that can cover in that left back role. So let's say, for example, we're playing a back four and a flat back four, similar to what Mikel Arteta did against Liverpool last year, or what Mikel Arteta or Pep Guardiola did towards the end of last season. And we wanted someone, we wanted to play White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Kivior. Once Gabriel and Kivior are playing, and if one of them picks up an injury, we don't have someone that can come in and take that role. Whereas if you've got a centre-back that can play left-back, like a Kivior, Gabriel can't really do that as well. And that's why I think he's been dropped. Because Gabriel is someone who's a pure defender, who's not bad at progressing the ball. He's not bad at all. He's quite good at it. But he's out of the whole defence that we've started within the first 2 games, he's the weakest out of those. And for Arsenal to have an extra attacker, an extra midfielder on that pitch and dominate possession like we had done in the first half and up until the red card against Crystal Palace, and like we did for literally the whole game against Nottingham Forest, that's why Gabriel's been sacrificed. So if we was to lose one of Kivior or Gabriel, we would be in trouble. That's why I would get a centre-back that can play left-back in that role. And they are not easily sought, and there's not a big market out for them at the moment. Hence why I keep repeating it, why Josko Vardiol has gone to Manchester City for the price that he has. A wonderful defender with potential to be one of the best in the world. But for someone of his level currently, it's a big price that you're putting on him, because RB Leipzig and Manchester City both know that there isn't the depth out there. There isn't the quality in depth in that position. So I'd want someone that can comfortably do that. They don't even necessarily have to be left-footed. Maybe are you going to have someone like Tomiyasu go out there? But with Tomiyasu, he covers about 3 positions himself. He's a bit like a Timber, like a lighter Timber in that sense. But yeah, I would preferably want someone there. Let me know your thoughts in the chat on that, and I'll get into, because the comments are flying in. Big up to yourself. Big up Ryan in the building here. That says, I think offers will come in closer to the end of the window, trying to force Arsenal's hand to sell on the cheap. Big up to yourself, Ryan. Yeah, I do agree with you on that. I think clubs will want to do that if they know that we're desperate to sell certain players. But I think that can also work in Arsenal's favour as well, Ryan. Because let's say for Balogun, yeah, for Fulham or Monaco or anyone that's interested in Balogun that needs a striker, the closer they get towards the end of the window, the harder it is it's going to be able to find someone where Arsenal could demand even more, because they know that they're desperate. You know, like how Liverpool are now for a defensive midfielder. I think the signing of Endo is to make them not be as desperate, and to tell other clubs, saying like, no, we're not as desperate as you may think, because we've got Endo in now, so we have a defensive midfielder. So trying to help them with their value. So do you get what I'm saying in that situation, Ryan? I think that could potentially work in Arsenal's favour. Final thing I'll talk about, and then we'll get to your comments, because I'm loving the thoughts that you've got in here. I really am. I've just had a quick glance at them, and I want to discuss them with you. So, but I need to get through this final one first, and that is Ivan Toney's interview. Okay, Ivan Toney. He said that he likes Arsenal. He's a Liverpool fan growing up, but he likes Arsenal. Would you take Ivan Toney? Would you take him? I think if we're talking about pure football ability, everybody's saying yes, 100%. But I think with Toney, forget the betting scandal, forget that. And it's hard to forget that. But it's hard to forget it because he's currently suspended and won't play until January because of it. But I think, what I saw in that interview and on what I've seen from other things with Ivan Toney, I don't think he's got the attitude. I don't think he's got the mentality to succeed at Arsenal and do what he needs to do. Forget his ability. His ability, he certainly does have it. But he's spoken about, what I've heard him speak about Brentford in the past, F Brentford. And when they're doing that interview with him in the car, asking him who's he play for, says no one relevant or something. Well, I forgot what he said. I'm going to paraphrase something like that. He's got a lot of confidence, that's for sure. I think he's got the confidence to play at Arsenal. But I'm not sure he's a player that Arteta would want in that dressing room. Forget about his ability when I'm speaking about this, because I rate him. And yes, he would walk into most literally every team barring in the Premier League, barring City at the moment, walk in as a striker. Even at Arsenal, he'd come in and he'd play. Yeah, maybe not walking, compete with Jesus, but would still get a lot of minutes in terms of pure ability. What I can give you, the hold-up play, the technical ability is very underrated, the goals he scores, etc. He's a ridiculous footballer. But I just, the mental aspect, guys, the psychological aspect is so important. And that's why Arsenal have overachieved, because we've got players who have that on the same wavelength, who don't have this arrogance where they think they have a deserved right to play, or have this sort of air, of this sort of thing. I genuinely think it's a massive part in football. I think other clubs can suit with it better and cope with it, and their situations are maybe more desperate. And he will walk in as a number one striker. Man United walks in, him and Hojlund. I mean, that's great. That would be a great partnership. And Man United, they were Alex Ferguson. If he was the manager, he'd love Tony and he'd get the best out of him. But I just don't think Arteta would. I don't think Pep Guardiola would. We've seen Pep Guardiola with Ibrahimovic. We've seen Arteta with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Those coaches that have a lot of power, and if you don't do it my way, it's the highway type approach. Don't think it'll work. It's not to discredit him as a player. It's not at all. I love Ivan Toney, and if Arteta looked at him and said, "No, trust me, I can work with him," I'm doing a switcheroonie, and I'm saying no. Arteta approves. I'll be like a puppet for him. I'll take him, but that's because I'm not sure. Yeah, there is a situation there just with that. And King says here, Tony's lack of accountability was shocking for me. Brother, it's so true. Like, we're forgetting that in that interview, he turned around and he said, I accepted the charges, even the ones that didn't do. Do you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. That's not taking accountability. You're in the public light. You've come out publicly then be strong and say, no, I didn't do them. And I know it would hinder your career, and he said that there. He just wanted to get it done and over with for the sake of his career. But he's not but just then don't speak about it in an interview. Just take it and move on. And then maybe after, at the end of your career, then you say, I didn't actually do them. I only said I did it because I just wanted to. I was so focused on just getting back, and I wanted to get back as soon as possible and not get a greater punishment. Not while she's still banned. Do you get me? Like, yeah, I didn't think it was the right thing to do. So those sort of decisions, I don't know, man. And if Tony was to come in, he's been the captain of Brentford. He's worn that armband on multiple occasions. I think Brentford's the right environment for him. It's a bit like Wilfred Zaha. No disrespect to Crystal Palace, but Wilfred Zaha, as soon as he made that move to Man United, it didn't work out because he wasn't a first name on the team sheet. He wasn't, the player that you build everything around. Let's not doubt his quality. Wilfred Zaha was one of the best wingers in the Premier League at his time, but it just doesn't always work out. Big fishes in a smaller pond. It works because they are the main man. They are the star. Everything's built around them. Do you get it? Even though he was itching for a move away, clubs weren't willing to take that risk, even though he had the quality. So I think that's a big reason for Ivan Toney. But let me hear your thoughts as well. Ryan in the building, not the kind of player Arteta rates attitude-wise. 100% up, Ryan. 100% agree with you. Lil Yo-Yo says, I disagree. I think there's a monster there with Tony. Loads of players have attitude problems. As long as he doesn't violate, he could work. Bro, Lil Yo-Yo, I think, I 100% agree with you when we talk about the player himself and the ability he has. There is a monster and is one of the top strikers in the Premier League. 20 goals. Don't care how many of them were penalties. There's still a goal at the end of the day. Yeah. 20 goals. Big goals away at Manchester City. Nuisance. The only player, last year that bullied Saliba is Tony. And that's how good he is. And I know that. But I just don't think... I think with how Arteta is as a manager and Arsenal and the situation they're in, the young team that we're in, I don't think Arteta would want that in and around there. Do you understand? So, yeah. Can Tony even press enough to play for us? I think he could. He's not someone that lacks athleticism and he works really hard. It's another thing he spoke about in the interview. He said he hates running. I'm like, bro, if you play for Arsenal, the counter press is mad. You have to enjoy running. You have to run a lot. Kai Havertz covered the most distance on the pitch at Crystal Palace. This is not this. That's why Arteta sees a player in him when everyone's like, what? Why have Arsenal signed Havertz? Me included. But when you look deeper and look into these things, it makes sense. So can Tony even do that? I don't know. I'll take him at Man United tomorrow. Yeah, 100%. I understand that. I totally do. And I understand Arsenal fans that say that they would take him in a heartbeat. But for me, mentality is a big thing in football. A mentality over ability, especially at the top level. That's what separates you. And if he went to Man United and wasn't success, fair play to him. But I also don't think that him being a success at Man United would necessarily correlate and say he's a success at Arsenal. Do you get it? Different situations, different clubs, different managers. Erik ten Hag might be better suited at managing a character like that. If Alex Ferguson was there, he takes that and he does a fantastic job with him. Sorry for the lag and that, guys. This stream's really annoying me today, man. I don't know why it keeps doing it. I'm connected to my Ethernet cable as well. There is just an issue. Luke says, I do want a different type of centre forward, but maybe we could sign Taremi as a stopgap till next summer when I'd like us to sign an Evan Ferguson. Same thing, 100%. He's got that similar type of mold to an Ivan Toney. He's, physical striker, brilliant technical ability, hold up play, scores goals in the penalty area. I like that. A different option. Once again, as long as he's got the right mentality, he could definitely be a success for Arsenal. I like that. I like the way you're thinking there. And Evan Ferguson, that's my number one target. I know the reports came out from Jack Talbot earlier on this week. Hey, mate, Jack Talbot's not the most reliable of journalists. He was the one that said we signed Mudryk basically when we didn't. Hey, serious player, Evan Ferguson. That's my number one target above Victor Osimhen because of what his overall game is and the ceiling he has. And I know it's a mad thing to say because Victor Osimhen right now, today, and maybe even next year will be at a higher level than Evan Ferguson. But yeah, I think Evan Ferguson has the potential to be one of the very best strikers in the world. Ever. I mean, ever? No, sorry. That's a bit too far. I think Arteta would make it work. It's about winning at the end of the day. It didn't work out with Aubameyang. It didn't work out. That's all I've got to say, man. It didn't. You hit Lil Yo-Yo, one of the greatest strikers that we've seen in the game. Zlatan Ibrahimovic couldn't work at Barcelona. With Pep Guardiola, one of the greatest managers ever to manage. It doesn't always work that way, Who's better, Ibrahimovic or Tony? It's not even a question. Yeah, but Ibrahimovic couldn't work at Barca. There's a lot more of the things that were involved as well. Lil Yo-Yo says Zaha was 19. To be fair, harsh to judge him on his time at United. Yeah, to be fair though, 19 don't really matter for me. Because Saka was 17 playing for Arsenal at left back. Do you get it? So, I think those things are built in you. And there's a reason why he didn't work out at Man United and why he spent his whole career. He said, mate, the best of times of his career at Crystal Palace. Do you get it? And that's no disrespect to Palace. There is a reason. He had interest, but people weren't willing to. I'm not for one pay the money to take that sort of a risk. Do you get it? So he's someone trying to blame. He's trying to blame someone else for missing out on the World Cup. He's like, bro, if you didn't do any of the bets, you wouldn't. You wouldn't have got. You would have gone simple. Show that you said that you're sorry and that you regret the mistakes and move on. Show remorsefulness. Yeah, exactly. He does need that. Ivan needs to hire a PR manager. He is too raw with his statements. Imagine if he comes out and says something that Arteta don't like. That's a problem. Do you get it? Like, then you probably won't ever see him play again because he's someone who seems very strong in his opinion. Strong. He might even be right in those things, in some of the things. But how many times in jobs, yeah, have you felt injustice or felt something or, felt, this something ain't fair or you're right and the manager's wrong? But sometimes just for the sake of professionalism, your head down, shut up. Do you get it? And football, it's the worst, bro. Man, guys, I play football at a much lower level than Ivan Toney, yeah, but at a decent-ish level. Managers want you to do something, tell you were a mistake for this, or how you behave, or etc. was wrong, and you believe that it's someone else. How many times I've just had to sit there and shut up and bite my lip because of the sake. If I say something, I ain't playing next week. Even if I know I'm right and I'm quite strong in that, you have to, because I know my sort of role as well. You get it? Whereas Ivan Toney, and it's personalities, and I'm not blaming for this at all. That ain't working. Do you get it? So yeah, there's times and places where you come out and speak. And I'm saying, for example, if I had a disagreement with a manager at work or in football, I speak about him, I knock on the door and I speak about him in the right moment and the right time. Toney in his interview, he ain't done that at the right time. You do not come out. You're currently suspended. At least do it after your suspension. do you know what I mean? And start speaking in that way. Ibra all day. And Pep just wanted Messi to be the star and play it a certain way. Yeah, play a certain way, but it's not even about playing a certain way because Pep's not a fool, yeah. And Pep wanted something with Ibrahimovic and thought that he could do something, but it was the relationship didn't work out. They didn't see eye to eye. Ivan Toney with Jose Mourinho, cook. Do you get it? Like Ivan Toney and the Jose Mourinho manager, they would work. They'd work a treat. Alex Ferguson would. Ivan Toney and an Arteta? Nah, not for me. But I hear your point. It's a balancing act. Yeah, exactly. You get me? I hear your points as well because the player, he's a top player. I can't deny that. Uncle, look what Pep did with David Villa. Agenda must stop. Exactly. Guys, that was a great debate there talking about Toney. I really do appreciate that. And I love people having difference of opinions. So Lil Yo, big up to yourself, my bro, as well. King, Realist, everyone in the chat, Casey, Ryan, everyone that's been in here, I really do appreciate you all because I love having, difference of opinions as well. So I really have appreciated you guys coming in here and chatting about those things there. Any other topics that we wanted to speak about? Oh yes, Paxton gave us some breaking news earlier on this, and I'm just gonna cross-reference it. It's about Mohamed Kudus. Let me have a look. I'm sure we probably would have got that from a Fabrizio Romano, but Mohamed Kudus, who I have got in the photo, in the thumbnail, and it was from David Ornstein as well, guys. So exclusive West Ham. Let me get into it. Let me show you. Let me try to read it out. I'll read it out and you can have a look as well. Exclusive West Ham on the verge of agreement with Ajax to sign Mohamed Kudus, official West Ham United bid for the 23-year-old attacking midfielder, expected to be accepted. 41.5 million euros with 3 million in add-ons and a 10% sell-on clause. Personal terms in place on a 5-year deal plus option of a sixth. And that is from The Athletic. So, boom, guys, you saw him on the thumbnail. If you could work it out, it was him that I posted there. Arsenal been interested in him, spoke to him, but I haven't moved for him. And he's flirted with other clubs, flirted with Brighton. Apparently, he's flirted with Chelsea as well. And now it looks like he's heading to West Ham. Disappointed, yes, because I would love a Mohamed Kudus at Arsenal. I think he's a brilliant player, an excellent option. And the future with Lucas Paqueta being in doubt now, not because of Manchester City anymore, but because of this potential ban that you could have coming up for betting and potentially match fixing, which could be longer than Ivan Toney and Ivan Toney's 8-month ban. So I think it's a priority for West Ham to get someone in. Oh, man, I think he's going to be brilliant for him. The issue where I think Arsenal, two points where I think Arsenal haven't gone for him. One, because we've been focusing on sales for now. No additions apart from Raya, and even Raya, that was a loan with a buy option. And that's because Brentford were willing enough to make a deal. Massive shout out to Brentford. You want any of those players that you want asked for there? We'll give you a deal, mates rates, for the 7 players, for any of the 7 players we're trying to get leave the club. If I was DOF, but this is why I'm not. This is why I'm on Tereak Talks on YouTube right here. But yeah, that's the first reason. I think Arsenal were looking to make sales before any additions being brought into place. And 2, I think Arsenal, we ain't looking for players that are Arsenal only want players who only want Arsenal. Or not necessarily say only want Arsenal, but make it clear that Arsenal is their preference and they're willing to wait for Arsenal and see what happens. That's just something that I've noticed from Arsenal, how we operated in the past few years. Lisandro Martinez, soon as cleared at Man United and he wanted Man United, fairs. We're not willing to do it. We'll get entertain a bidding war to raise his price, but we know we're not getting him. Rafinha, fairs. Step out. Dusan Vlahovic stepped out. Who else? I think Mohamed Kudus is one of them. Mudryk, guys. I think that's the big one. People forget that Arsenal were putting in big boy bids for Mudryk, but as soon as it was aware to Arsenal that he was interested in going to Chelsea, talking to them about personal terms, and him weighing up his options, yeah, his preference might have been Arsenal, but that was enough for him to say, "No, that's not what we're willing to do." And what confirms that for me, and what I saw before, was a tweet from Team News and Ticks, a well-connected, well-sourced Arsenal ITK who gets 99% of whatever he tweets out right. Let me have a look. So for this Kudus Team News Ticks. So what he said about Kudus. I'm trying to look for the tweet right here, guys. I do apologize, but there was something that he said in particular which resonated with me, because apparently Arsenal have been in contact with Mohamed Kudus, and that's where he broke the news there as well. I'm getting there. We're not far at all. Here we go. Right. So Arteta wants the right people that really. Here we go. I'm going to bring the tweet up for you as well, guys. Let's bring that. Arteta wants the right people that really, really want to play for Arsenal. We have all seen what we have created at the Emirates with the fan base in the last couple of years, and everyone has to buy into that. Some deals take longer while we test if the player wants only us. If they flirt elsewhere, we will pull out. You hear that? That's from Team News and Ticks. And there was also something before that as well in here. And this was regarding Mohamed Kudus again. This was when Elise news to Chelsea was breaking out and breaking through. I have no idea if the Elise story is true, but wonder if this has happened because Kudus has been speaking to someone else for months and months now, hinting towards Arsenal. And somebody replied, and he replied back to his own tweet saying, "I don't know if we'll get him, but dialogue has been happening for a long time." So Arsenal, well-connected, well-sourced ITK, has come out and said Arsenal have been interested in Mohamed Kudus. And we've been speaking to him for months and months, for a long time. But Arsenal haven't got him. And he looks like he's going to West Ham. That's because Arsenal, obviously, either we don't have the cash or Arsenal aren't interested anymore. because he's flirted with other clubs. That's my big reason. That's my thoughts. And that's how Arsenal want to play things, and that's how they want to go. Hey, Luke in the building. This comment just popped up. That's how you should test if the woman you might fancy is worth asking out. 100%. I'm not sure if you don't speak to them and let them and see what go on. I don't think that will work. But if they're serious and they really, really like you, and then you make a good enough reason, yeah, then that will work. I don't know why it's not focusing, but yeah, but yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. If they really like you for who you are, and they're not just desperate, but they just want to get in a relationship and they just want to make a move, in the terms of Mohamed Kudus, that's what he should do, man. That's what he should do. I hate the fact that this ain't focusing. I might need to get close to the camera. But yeah, do you see, Luke, you're onto something. You're onto something indeed. Something that you should try in relationships. Hey, I'm single. I've still got time. I might have to try this out as well. If we sold Balogun early, I reckon we'd have joined for Kudus. Yeah, King. Maybe that is the case. Maybe that is. But if you really wanted Arsenal, hold out, man. But I understand why these players aren't going to do it. I understand. I do understand again. But if Arsenal are serious about you, they will make it happen. They will. Can't knock the quality. Same thing again, bit like Tony. I ain't knocking the quality of the player. I really wanted him, and that's why he's in the thumbnail. But I just don't think it was. It won't work out. Maybe Arsenal will entertain it again in the future. We'll have to wait and see if he moves to West Ham and hits it well. I think he'd be brilliant at West Ham. You know that attack that they have with Antonio coming in. If he plays with Paqueta, wow, there'd be a serious at the front line. Jared Bowen, Ben Rama. That counter attack will be lethal to come up against. That's for sure. And he's playing in Europe for West Ham also. Interesting that Kudus rejected Brighton but accepted West Ham. Little yo-yo, excellent point. Excellent point right there. I wonder why. Brighton, better, much better situation at the moment. Better manager, better football, better team. Simple as that. At this moment in time, London factor, and don't really think that's going to be too much from Mohamed Kudus. Maybe it's because there might be something else in part in that deal. Might be something else. A sell-on. A release clause. That was the rumors surrounding there. Kudus to West Ham might be cooking. Bloody United lost to Burnley. I know I heard that in a behind the doors, closed doors friendly. Pepe's a bum as well. Eto annoyed me as well, but he's so damn good. It's annoying. Exactly. He fell out. He didn't see eye to eye with Eto. Eto was a fantastic player elsewhere. Won 2 trebles in his career. Won at Inter Milan and was an outstanding player under Jose Mourinho again. Do you get it? Big up to yourself as well, Ryan, and everyone else that has been locked in here. I am going to wrap this show up. We went on for an hour and 22. I really do appreciate you all, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I really do. Little Yo-Yo says, Ashna, news and relationship advice on Tereak Talks. Exactly. Hey, Little Yo-Yo, we do other teams. We do Premier League content on here. I want to talk about Man United as well. I think I might do a stream on that before the weekend on Manchester United. Might do it Friday night. Because there's a lot of talk around United at the moment and a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with. And you might like to hear because it's a bit positive about United. And there's also negatives as well. But yeah, I don't agree with the narrative totally that's going on out there. But late night talk with Tereak and Luke, exactly. It's after 9 now, so now we're talking about other things. But guys, I really do appreciate you once again. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. We have gained a few new subscribers. Big up to yourself, Ryan, who is a new subscriber in here. If you're still here and watching, we're on 690, 10 subscribers away. Come on, people. I do appreciate you all for joining. Share this to a friend, even if you're an Arsenal fan. Share it to other Arsenal fans. And if you're non-Arsenal fans, please do share it. as well. We have plenty of content on a transfer talk, Tereak Talking Transfer Show, the quadruple TTTT, where we talk about other teams. I was thinking about doing that today, but there was just some things I wanted to get off my chest talking about Arsenal news. But yeah, guys, stay locked in. We got plenty of watch-alongs as well. Content coming in thick and fast. Pause. But yeah, love to you all. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night here in the UK, if you are in the UK. But if you're elsewhere, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Or if you're in the Far East, hope you enjoy your Thursday. Yeah. I say Thursday, guys. It's too late. I'm heading out now. Love to you all, people. Take care.